So to introduce myself, my name is Kat Williams, and I want to just start with a story about stories, about why we're all here. Because I'm hosting this reading project today, Reading for Life, because I absolutely love stories, especially ones that inspire us and help us to understand each other. And did you know that less than 4%, that's less than 4 in every 100 children's books, have a disabled main character? And that's such a small number. So what that means is that lots of children don't get to see characters like them in stories, which can make it harder to believe what they're capable of. So this project is supported by a charity called Children Today. And here's a quick story about who founded it and why. So about 30 years ago, a dad called Hugh, he had 2 children, a boy and a girl. He lived by the seaside and he loved taking his 2 children on bike rides and days out. But he realized, what if other children that might have disabilities might not have the equipment they need to be able to do something like a bike ride? So he started this amazing charity called Children Today, which helps disabled children get things like wheelchairs and adapted trikes so they can explore with their families. And Hugh is still part of the charity today, and it's run by parents. And that's who set up this amazing reading project with our amazing author, Matt, and Kay, that's here as well. I'm going to introduce you in just a second. So why do I care about this? Well, a quick story. When I was about 10, I did something very silly on a bike, actually. I felt quite different. I didn't really feel I had friends. I really wanted to get friends and fit in. And there were 2 children playing on a bike. And I did something very crazy and climbed on the front of a bike. So there was 3 of us on it. And we ended up having quite a nasty accident, which looking back, I know it was because I was trying to fit in, belong, and I did something a little bit crazy. So what I do now, almost because of that, I'm a counsellor, I'm a therapist, and I talk to children and adults about how they're feeling. And the most important story is what I've realised is when we read, we're telling ourselves a story inside our own minds. And that's why I love the story that's going to be shared with you today, because it's all about the characters that are in stories, but also the stories we're telling ourselves about our confidence, what we're capable of. So that's all I have to say, and I'm so excited now to introduce you to our author of the day, who is Matt Stevens, and then I'll introduce you to Kay in just a second. So Matt, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about you?
Hi there, yeah, I'd love to. My name's Matt Stevens, and I am an author. I'm also, that doesn't actually pay my bills, so I pay my bills by being a hospital porter, which is actually a job that I love, and that means that I take patients to and from the operating theatre, basically. So many of them are very nervous, some of them are quite scared. So it's really, really important for me to put them at their ease, to be a friendly face, a friendly voice. And it's a job that I love because I'm helping people. It's a really big deal. I also used to be a teacher as well, but I haven't taught for about 10 years now. I've got a theory that every teacher has got a best before date, and I definitely reached mine. I spent 23 years teaching and I absolutely loved it, but it reached a point where it became less of a joy and more of a job. Just 1 letter difference there, but an awful big difference. And I realized that was the time to get out. So any children listening there might want to ask their teacher when their best before date is, but then again, you might not. Please don't blame me, teachers. I love being a writer. It's great because writing helps me, and not just me, to sort things out in my head, to sort out thoughts, to sort out emotions. I've written for children, I've written for adults, I've written funny books, I've written joyful books, I've written incredibly sad and scary books as well for adults. And that was because of some of the things that were going on inside my head, which I was finding hard to deal with. And one of the wonderful things about writing is that it helps you to deal with stuff. It helps you to sort out your thoughts and your feelings when sometimes your thoughts and feelings can feel quite overwhelming. And you don't have to be a published author. You can write a book that takes you a year to write. You can sit down and write a diary entry that takes you 10 minutes. The same process occurs. You can be a fantastic writer. You can be not so confident as a writer. It still has the same process. It helps sort out what's going on in there, and it helps you to understand what's going on in there. And that's why I really love to write.
Oh, I love that, Matt. And you're so right that people have written diaries and so many forms for just hundreds of years to do exactly that, to either process their thoughts for themselves or to share them out with others, isn't it? Amazing.
Totally. And I haven't even tried to get everything that I've written published. I've written things that were simply important to me, and it was important to me to write them. Sometimes I've shared them with one or two people that I'm close with. Sometimes I haven't at all. Sometimes I've just done it purely for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And over to Kay. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, Kay, and your part here? Welcome.
Hi. Hi everyone. I'm Kay, and I was lucky enough to help Matt out with the fabulous story that will be read today. Not once, but twice during the publication process. Publication is just a posh word for what happens when a book becomes available to buy, and there are many steps we all have to do before that, and I was just a tiny part of that. Now, why was I a part of that? Well, I use a wheelchair, much like some of the characters in Matt's story, and I work for a company called Inclusive Minds, and Inclusive Minds hire people like me who have lived experience of certain disabilities or certain perhaps differences in life, whether that be with your body, in your mind, maybe you've been in foster care, maybe you don't have a mummy, maybe you have two mummies or two daddies, and they look for people like me, and they send us stories that they think we might like to read. Then we apply to the publishers, the people that make the book happen, introduce ourselves and say what we can give to this story, i.e. I use a wheelchair and I have since I was about 2 years old. And then the publishers pick who they want based on what we write. So sometimes I get a little bit sad because I don't always get the stories that I want, but it's really good because I get to read the story before anybody else, but I have to keep it a secret. So that's what I did for Matt. I write for myself at the moment, mainly for fun. And I hope one day to be like Matt, to have a book published, maybe for children or for adults. So
wow. Oh, I can't wait to read that book when it comes out. Okay, let's hope it does. Or more than one. Well, I've got so many questions in my mind for both of you already. So I'm sure those listening have as well. Do start to bring them into the chat. But if it's all right, shall we go? Are you ready, Matt, to go into?
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll keep those questions in our heads for now.
Fantastic. Can't wait.
Bring it all out afterwards. So very excited. So you can introduce the book you're going to be reading and everything else. But take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, my name's Matt Stevens, and this is the book that I wrote, or one of the books that I've written. It's called Raz Beri. Slightly strange title. It's because some people who are wheelchair users or who are disabled in other ways get bullied. They get people do unpleasant things to them. They get people say unpleasant things to them. And I find that horrible. And one of the insults which is leveled at some disabled people is a bit of rhyming slang where you have a word or a phrase that rhymes with another one, okay? And it's raspberry, which comes from raspberry ripple, which is rhyming slang for cripple, which is a very nasty and unpleasant thing to call people. So if you call someone a raspberry, nah, it's not okay. It's not okay at all. Okay, and this is something that the main character in my book, who's called Billy, was very upset by. But after a while, he learnt to take that insult and use it for himself, for his online presence. So he started calling himself Raz Beri. So he took the insult, used it himself. It's no longer an insult. Okay, I'm going to read the first chapter from Raz Beri. Just got to warn you, there's one or two words in there which aren't very nice words. It's not because I like using nasty words, it's because the characters in the book are using some nasty words, and that sets up the rest of the story. Okay, here we go. Raz Beri, chapter 1. Boring and interesting, horrible and amazing. School today was interesting. Well, some of it was amazing, some of it was horrible, some of it was very, very interesting, and of course, most of it was seriously boring. 'Tis school after all. Let's start with boring, get it out of the way. The Tudors and Stuarts, stylistic conventions of non-fiction, acids, bases, and alkalis, converting metric and imperial measurements, teacher after teacher going on and on and on. Interested? Then you're reading the wrong book. Is there the tiniest chance that I'm going to need any of that stuff in my adult life? Really? I certainly don't need it in my teenage life, and yes, I am amazingly several days into my teenhood. Billy Turpin, 13 last week, a nation rejoiced. Well, a tiny corner of Willesden Junction, northwest London did anyway. I'll tell you about the living hell that was my party later. For now, let's tackle the amazing. Registration this morning, dull. Standard, not amazing at all. Mr. Balotelli, our group tutor, tall, dull, standard, not amazing at all, but nice. I like Mr. Balotelli. He doesn't mock like Mr. Moore and Mr. Nascimento. He doesn't bore like Mr. Lawrenson, Miss Savage, Mrs. Claridge, and the rest. He doesn't shout like Mrs. Marsh and Bowles. I'll come back to all of them. Mr. Balotelli said, "Listen up, everybody. You will not believe what is going to happen in 2 weeks' time." Some of the kids, like me, looked up and gave him our full attention. I'm generally good in class, always quiet, definitely not cool. The cool kids, led by the evil Rio, yawned and chatted and sniggered and stared at the ceiling. Rio looks and dresses like a model. He ran his hand through his shiny black hair and looked at his mobile. Mr. Balotelli is scared of Rio and doesn't tell him off for it. If I looked at my mobile in class, it would be confiscated. Well, if you're not interested, said Mr. Balotelli, I can easily find some other work for you to do when the captain of the England football team comes into school. OMG, even Rio and his followers were listening now. What? Said Rio. Shut up, you don't mean Danny Cash? Mr. Balotelli nodded his balding head and smiled his sad smile. Danny Cash, my absolute hero, incredible, amazing, awesome. I had 23 pictures of him on my bedroom wall, and I wanted more. The great Danny Cash, captain of England, captain of Earl's Court FC, my team, my passion. My bedroom is painted in the ECFC colours, yellow and blue, like Brazil. My duvet is yellow, my pillowcases are blue. I've got pictures of the whole squad on my wall, but Danny Cash is the star by a mile. Still is. He's strong and stocky with a cuboid head. Wow, I used a word I learnt in school. Maybe it's not all completely useless. And has more talent in his left foot than the whole Manchester United squad put together. Danny Cash, said Rio. The Danny Cash is coming here. That's right, Rio, said Mr. Balotelli. The Danny Cash is coming to our school. And not just Danny Cash. Gary Reid and Nicky Dolgence are coming too. They'll be running a training session in double PE on Wednesday, the 10th. Gary Reid and Nicky Dolgins are Danny Cash's Earl's Court and England teammates. They're awesome too, just not quite so awesome. I've got 12 pictures of Nicky Dolgins on my wall and 9 of Gary Reid. Mr. Balotelli grinned while the class just went nuts. Kids were jumping out of their seats, whooping, grabbing each other and saying things like wicked and sick and oh my God. I was nearly making the right noises myself too, but no one wanted to hug or high-five me. They never do these days. Rio said, above the commotion, Mr. Balotelli, sir, how comes we got England players coming into our class? Mia, the new girl, was smiling quietly. Mr. Balotelli walked over to her, put his hand on her wheelchair, and said to the class, you might want to reflect for a moment on Mia's surname. I'd already been reflecting on Mia's lovely dark brown eyes, which was something of a new experience for me. Mia smiled and simultaneously hissed, don't touch my wheelchair, sir. Mr. B went red and quickly removed his hand. No one else noticed they were thinking about the new girl's name. What is it? Said horrible Hisham, Rio's mate. Cash. Mia Cash, like Danny Cash. No. Yes, said Mia. She's so gutsy, she's not like me. She's new, but she speaks up in front of the class, answers teachers back, stands up to anyone, even Rio. You know, if she could stand. Mia said, my Uncle Danny would do anything for me. She grinned some more while the class went crazy all over again. Kids were whirling in each other's arms. Another of Rio's disciples, lame brain Liam, grabbed Mia's wheelchair from behind and spun her around in a circle. Mia's face turned scary as she reached behind her and grabbed Liam's kneecap. You could see the tips of her fingers digging in behind the bone. Liam's eyes opened wide. You let go of my chair now, said Mia, or you never play football again. Sorry, Mia, said Liam. Rio laughed, so everyone else followed suit, including me. Damn it. Rio makes my life a misery. I can't believe we used to be friends at primary school, just a year or so ago, before he learnt to be cool. Before he learned that hanging around with me was the opposite of cool. Everyone followed his lead, they always do, and here I am, Billy No Mates. That's okay, Liam, said Mia, as long as you understand that if I want you to move my wheelchair, I'll ask you. Liam nodded and then nodded some more. Do you have anything else, Liam, that you'd rather wasn't grabbed hold of and twisted through 360 degrees? Mia had pulled her wheelchair around so she could glare at him. Liam stared stupidly. Grinning, Rio said, Bruv, this is where you say, yes, Mia. Liam nodded again. He seems to be pretty good at that. I'm glad we understand each other, said Mia, letting go. Wow, Coolidge. She really is something. Okay, said Mr. Balotelli. Settle down, please. I need you to line up for assembly now and start thinking about how we can prepare for our famous guests. We'll discuss it in geography this afternoon. Mr. Balotelli takes us for geography as well as being our group tutor. Normally it's about meanders, scree slopes, population density. Talking football would be one major improvement. So that was the amazing. Shall we do interesting or horrible next? Stuff it. Let's get horrible out of the way. The line at the door was buzzing. I couldn't join it because there were chairs in the way and no one had remembered to move them for me. Oh yeah, didn't I mention? I use a wheelchair too. I've got cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy, or CP, is caused by brain damage as a tiny child or unusual development in the womb. Millions of people have it. It causes problems with muscles and coordination. With me, I find it really hard to use my legs. Also, when I talk, it comes out sounding funny, kind of laboured and squeaky, like I'm an idiot or something. I'm not. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. I do. The thoughts I have are as good as anyone's, better even. It's just when I express them, I sound like a cartoon character, so I hate speaking up. I was left behind again. The class all headed off to the science block. Mr. Balotelli saw my problem and cleared the way. Hurry up now, Billy, you'll be late. Yes, sir. All through the morning, no one talked about anything but football and the famous players we had visiting. At break time, everyone was playing football, even some of the teachers. There were games springing up left, right, and centre, and I was desperate to be part of one. I hung around the edge of the biggest. Obviously, it was the one Rio and his mates were playing. Obviously, that was a stupid idea. The ball ricocheted off sweaty Scott's knee and bounced towards me. I caught it and everyone cheered. That was such a good feeling. It made me bold. It made me stupid. It made me say, I know, maybe I could be in goal. What? Said Rio. What did you say, Mong? Mong means Mongol, a horrible term for someone with Down syndrome. I don't even have Down syndrome. I wanted to tell them, but I didn't. It's a genetic condition, and when they say it, they're just showing their ignorance. I felt my confidence draining fast, but I managed to repeat myself. Maybe I could be in goal. Maybe I could be in goal, squeaked Rio, and his mates all fell about laughing. Was Stephen Hawking stupid? He hardly spoke normally. In Mrs. Robson's class all those years ago, Rio used to look after me, play with me, beat up the kids that tried to tease me, until he decided it was social death hanging out with a spaz. Spaz, that one really hurts. It's an abbreviation for spastic, a word no one uses anymore. No one decent anyway. It was supposed to be a medical word, but now it means contempt. It means hate. It means I'm less than human. Do one, spaz bag, you're taking up space. Maybe I could be in goo, said Hisham, and the laughter started up again. I felt the tears welling. My arms worked fairly well, a bit shaky, but fairly well. I threw the ball back, turned myself around, and started wheeling away as quickly as I could, away from the laughter. Why are they like this? I get this stuff all the time. It kills me. Having cerebral palsy isn't horrible. It's just me and lots of other people. Being treated like that, like a half human, that's horrible. Most of the girls in my class think I'm cute, which isn't quite so bad, I guess. They go, "Aw, bless," on the rare occasions that I open my mouth. And at least they're not being vile to me like some of the boys are, but to tell the truth, I could do without them looking down on me. I know, I'm in a wheelchair and all, but, you know, metaphorically. Blimey. Another word I learnt at school. First cuboid, now metaphorically. What's going on? The thing with the boys is that I'm not really human to them either. To the boys, I'm a mong or a flid or a spaz. All cruel words. We've done spaz and mong already. Flid? I had to ask my nan the first time someone called me that. It comes from thalidomide, a drug used that caused awful physical problems in new babies back in the last century. It's nothing to do with my condition. It's just another way of telling people they're less than. To the girls, I'm someone to fuss and cuddle when they're bored, or to push from lesson to lesson when they want to show how caring they are. More of a plaything, really. All I want is to be treated normally, with respect and like a human being. Is that too much to ask? When Danny Cash comes, will it just confirm their prejudice, or will it give me the chance to show them the real Billy Turpin? Mia's only just joined the school, but she sees how the other kids treat me. She doesn't follow them. Mia doesn't patronize me. She doesn't call me names. She doesn't do any of that stuff. Mia thinks for herself and doesn't care what other people think. Yeah, I never thought I would say this about a girl, but Mia is seriously interesting. The end of chapter 1. Thank you.
Amazing. Oh, I want you to... That's so good. Well, I hope everybody loved that. Questions come at and for Kay. So I will start questions off while someone will be coming in. I think I've just seen a little ping. Oh yeah, the live chat is open now. So let's just get us started by asking, is the story inspired by real life?
Partly. I kind of took an incident from real life and picked it up and ran with it, if you like. There was an incident at Bristol City Football Ground, which is Ashton Gate, quite a long time ago. around 2000, when a not very mature player lost his temper at a refereeing decision and picked up the ball and hammered it, kicked it as hard as he could into the crowd. It went into the crowd, it hit a young girl in the face, knocked her over, damaged her face. She had to have hospital treatment, and there was a big local fuss about it. And this is an incident which I incorporate, or something similar, in the story Raz Beri in a later chapter. And the rest of the story is based upon that incident, or it flows from that incident. So in that regard, yes, it's based upon real life, but it's not real life. It's also based upon some people that I've met who face various problems, be they physical problems, social problems, mental problems, and who have met those issues with courage and stood up to some of the difficult things that the world throws at you. And those characters have inspired the characters Billy and Mia, who learn in Raz Beri how to stand up for themselves as well.
Amazing. And I suppose, sadly, the language, like you said, that it was beautifully explained there, but sadly used. Has that been inspired? Have you seen bullying like that, or heard about it?
I've certainly heard about it on many occasions. I haven't specifically seen disabled people being bullied in that way. I've seen people from different ethnic groups being bullied by people using similarly disgusting racist language, and that is absolutely foul. So the book isn't specifically about disability. It's about any one of us learning to find our voice and learning to stand up for ourselves.
Amazing, which I love that. And Kay's got her hand up, I noticed. Are you able to unmute, Kay? Lovely to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it was just about the specific word spaz or spastic. Unfortunately, I was subject to that word a lot, because when I went to school in the early 90s, it wasn't really that common to see people in wheelchairs attending a school that what we would call nowadays is mainstream, so not catered for people in wheelchairs. So I was the only girl in my school in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy like Billy, and I got called this word a lot, and it's actually a medical term. The full term is spastic diaplegia, which a doctor told me and my mother when I was younger, and it's to do with the type of cerebral palsy I have, which means, I know it's a long word, but it basically means stiffness and problems with muscles in all four limbs, hence the word quad, meaning four. So it used to be a medical term to help describe types of CP or cerebral palsy, but then it became offensive in the 90s, and I hope it's used, I'd like to think, less in schools now, because integration is more common, but obviously I can't be sure because I'm an adult now. But I just wanted to weigh in on that, because I think I wrote about 3 pages on that in total on the document that I sent back to Matt, just to reassure people that the terms were not put in there lightly, that it was based on my life and things that I'd been called as well. Mm-hmm. So we didn't just want to throw bad words around to upset people.
No, absolutely. A question for you're both, which is, do you have a favourite character? So maybe Matt first and then Kay. So in the book, do you have a favourite character in Raz Beri?
Oh gosh, well first I'd just like to say that's why Kay's work was so important in writing Raz Beri, because of her own lived experience, and thanks very much, Kay. It's absolutely invaluable. You massively improved the book. Yeah. Favourite character? I kind of like all the characters in the book, which I suppose is good. Nearly all of them, like the rest of us, they show their good side at some point, and they show their not so good side at some point. there's only one character there who doesn't show any really good points or good sides to his character at any point, and that's a character called Mr. Lustig Preen. And he really doesn't have any redeeming features that we get to see anyway. And he is actually a writer's dream, because just any stuff which is just really unpleasant or stupid or awful that you want to chuck into the book, you can just funnel it through Mr. Lustig Preen, and it makes writing an awful lot easier and a lot more fun. It's really good. So I guess he, in a perverse way, he's my favourite character because he's the only one who doesn't actually show a good side at all.
Wow, and what names you have for the teachers, Mr. Lustig Preen. I love that one. Wow, they're all brilliant. How about you, Kay? Do you have a favourite character in the book?
Oh, that is so difficult. I mean, I love it all. I mean, one of the hardest things about this project was keeping quiet about it for so long, because I knew it was such a valuable book. I'm same as Matt. Lustig. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that there's a joke later on that comes up about Matt's favorite character that I can't possibly spoil because I chuckle every single time. Just for the how somebody can be so oblivious to everything around them and so involved. It is just all unbelievable, but also hilarious. I would say probably Mia, because I wish I was more like her. I won't spoil it too much. When I was younger, standing up to people, and when I say standing up, just to reiterate, I'm like telling people directly, do not touch my wheelchair, do not literally push my wheelchair unless I ask you. I wish I was more like her when I was her age, and I didn't let people talk over me, hurt me, and say things about me, because she really helps Billy to grow, and she has a lot of self-confidence. So I think, yeah, for more of her in me and in the world, I think the world would be a better place.
And it sounds like that might be partly why you were so hard not to talk about the book, because you wanted that message to get out there. I should assume as fast as possible. Like, everyone needs to meet Mia. She's amazing. By the sound
She is fab, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone needs to know. Thank you, Kay. I'm still hoping some questions come in. Do put some in if you can think of any in your classes watching. But I'd like to ask you, Kay, first, and then come back to Matt, about your role, Kay, within the book. And well, first of all, how you found out about, what being a authenticity advocate is that something, as soon as you heard about it, you wanted to do that? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that, and then obviously any specific to this book?
Yeah, sure. So I learned about inclusive minds, and now what's called an authenticity advocate's role. It's changed so many times. I have to make sure that's the right term now. During the lockdown, because a friend of mine who's also an author like Matt wanted me to read a book in which it's very different narrative to this, where also the main character, or what you might call the protagonist, the posh word, had cerebral palsy. And she said once I'd read her book and had a couple of video calls, and she'd been to a couple of events, and done some PR for the book. She's not here today, so I won't mention too much about that. But she heard about Inclusive Minds at one of these events, and she said to me, I think you should apply to be on their mailing list or their register. And then, because your feedback on my book has helped me so much with the edits, I think you could do this for other people. So I did, and I got on their register, and I get emails periodically, and it's just a really, really good way, because I love to read, to kind of make sure that children's books are, how can I put this in a really easy way, kind of evolving with the way that our society and the way that we are interacting with each other is trying to evolve. So are we being positive, but are we also being authentic, even in fiction? So authentic just means, are we being realistic? Like we don't want to give people the idea that everybody that has a wheelchair, for example, can stand or cannot. How can we make these ideas more accessible, and how can we deliver them to children in a kind of really fun way that fits the story? And because I've always loved reading, it's something I'm passionate about. So yeah, I'll continue to do it and keep my fingers crossed for another book to come up, because I've done a few now. And there's, I mean, there's so much more I could say, but I don't want to spoil the book, so I'm going to stop there, Matt, because I think every school should buy this book, and I'm not just saying that. I think it's, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Certainly brilliant, and well done, well to both of you for being involved with it, and obviously Matt for writing it. So to you, Matt, what difference or how important was Kay's role in helping you to understand, I guess, Billy's perspective, or Mia's? What difference did it make? Have Kay?
Oh, huge. Because as I've said, I'm fortunate in that I'm not a wheelchair user. So as much as I can attempt to empathize, to put myself in the shoes of my characters, there are times when I simply won't have the same kind of insight that Kay can have. And it was absolutely invaluable to have Kay read through the manuscript. That's the story before it becomes a book. To have Kay read through and give a critique of it on 2 occasions before it was actually published, and a lot of not just lines, but sometimes paragraphs and entire chapters, or the whole angle or the whole feeling of something were changed for the better, invariably, because of Kay's input. And I'd just like to say that I think that the story that Kay just told about how she became authenticity advocate, or I think what used to be called a sensitivity reader, but correct me if I'm wrong there, Kay, just shows actually that she is quite a lot like Mia, because that was an extremely brave thing to do in itself, isn't it? And it's exactly the sort of thing that the character Mia in Raz Beri would have done or would do herself. So hats off to you, Kay.
Yeah. We have a question in from Cara. So maybe to you both, but let's stay with Matt for first of all. Why do you think writing a book like this is important? That's from Cara.
Hi, Cara. Thanks for the question. I think it's important because the book, without spoiling things too much, although there's some sad bits in it, there's some difficult bits in it, just like in every one of our lives, is ultimately inspiring. Ultimately, Billy and Mia both go on a journey and learn how to grow up a little bit, how to become the best person that they can be. And if I can inspire any readers of any age to behave or feel in a similar way, then I think that's of enormous importance.
Definitely. How about you, Kay?
I think there's something quite magical about stories, in a sense that, so like I read a lot, particularly fantasy, and even if you read a fantasy book, sometimes there's a character in a fantasy novel that you might really identify with and you might really root for, and you might get your heart broken because the end of their story might not be, oh, everything's going to be great and easy from now on. And I think what's important about books like Raz Beri is they are teaching children without children realizing they're being taught something. And as someone who's done a bit of teaching like Matt pre-COVID, I can't remember the year, but there's something very clever and magical about the story format, because unlike all those children that sat in my lecture desperately trying to take notes or maybe just texting on their phone, it's kind of like they get these other ideas or they get some knowledge through these characters, and it's based on, hence why I do what I do, based on real experiences. And maybe, I'm just using an example, maybe a child who reads this book will have a neighbour that uses a wheelchair or that has difficulty with speech, and maybe because they're young and they haven't had exposure to disabilities, they would perhaps be afraid to talk to them, afraid to make a friend. And I think Raz Beri is the prime example of something that would give a child confidence to approach someone like me, but younger, and just know that they could say, hello, how are you today? Because it's not so overwhelming and so kind of taxing reading a story as it is being in a lecture hall, because it's hard for the teacher as well to fit everything in that hour. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. But it really
right.
is, and you always worry that you're going to bore people. And I think, children that read stories will 99.9% of the time be excited, want to read that story, be engaged. They won't be bored, and they won't know what they've learned until they finish it. And I think that's very special.
Yeah, I love that point, Kay, is that we do learn best through the power of stories, don't we? It's how we've always learned over the generations. So yeah, if you can learn without realizing you're learning, I love how you put that. Absolutely. Just enjoying the story and realizing, gosh, I've learned so much. And then, yeah, you look at the world around you differently. Like you say, gosh, the neighbor that lives next door, or the person I meet next week, and you suddenly see the world differently through that power of a story. So yes, I love that. We've got another question coming in, which is fabulous. We'll come back to Matt for this one and then see if Kay wants to come in as well. So this is from year 6 at St. Augustine's. They've really enjoyed chapter 1 and they focused on justice and equality in RE and PSHCE. And they've looked at many forms of discrimination. So they wondered if you've encountered personal discrimination to inspire your book.
I haven't been discriminated against myself because I belong to the group which, broadly speaking, is dominant. So, for example, although I am in fact mixed race, I present as white, so I haven't experienced racism against me. I'm male, so I haven't experienced sexism or misogyny. I'm able-bodied, so I haven't experienced that kind of ableism against me. But it's something that I'm very much aware of. It's something that I've seen in every part of my life. When I was a child at school, I saw it. I saw children getting bullied and beaten up because, for example, a young lad called Neil had learning difficulties, had some associated physical problems as well, and he received terrible bullying then, and it's absolutely appalling. I've seen racism throughout my life wherever I've gone. I've seen misogyny, which is discrimination against or hatred of females, women and girls, again, throughout my entire life. None of these things are okay. They're all frankly monstrous and totally without any kind of foundation or reason. And without trying to sound too worthy, I wanted to write a story which showed the importance of standing up to all these types of discrimination. But it's really important to note that I also wanted to write a story that was enjoyable to read. Okay, so first and foremost, the characters Billy and Mia, who both have CP or cerebral palsy, first and foremost, they're not disabled people. First and foremost, they're people. That's the point. They're people with their own strengths and weaknesses and foibles and good points and not so good points and sense of humor and what have you. And one aspect of them is the fact that they both use wheelchairs. But first and foremost, they are people. They are rounded characters, I really hope. And I really, really hope, and I think it's possibly the case, that when you read Raz Beri, you kind of feel like Billy and Mia are your friends. Yeah, they're not just someone who represents a person in a wheelchair. They're people that you know and like and understand, and perhaps understand yourself a little bit better through their story. That's the plan.
Definitely. And it's funny, like you said, it's so many facets to it. So yeah, it's enjoyable, it's funny, they're real rounded characters. Absolutely. It's fantastic. How long did it take you to write, Matt?
Oh, interesting question. Well, I work full time anyway, so I was only writing part time. I was only writing in the evenings and weekends. Roughly speaking, probably about 10 months to get most of it down. And then, of course, once it entered the publishing process, then there was rewrite after rewrite after rewrite, and sort of changing this and fiddling with that. So that goes on for months more, which is kind of frustrating for a writer. But to get the bulk of it down, bearing in mind that I was working full time, it took me around 10 months to a year.
And how many books have you written?
I've written several. I've had 2 published.
So was this the first one published or the second?
This is the second book I've had published. The first was a story, adult novel called Shawnee, which was a very, very different read indeed, a very difficult read, but I'm told not difficult to read. I think just about a very difficult subject, which is the abuse of children, which is something that I encountered a great deal of as, not as a child, thank goodness, but as a teacher of young children. And it was something which upset me a great deal as a teacher, some of the things that children were having to cope with, and which seemed so desperately unfair. And I was going home and it felt like my head was exploding. And I didn't write it for it to be published. I wrote it for my own benefit, really, as I alluded to earlier, as I spoke about earlier, to try and make sense of my thoughts and feelings. And when I finished it, I showed it to a very close friend who said, "This is quite good. Why don't you try and get it published?" So I did, and I was very fortunate that, in fact, the first publisher that I sent it to wanted to put it into print. So that's how that happened, but it was never an intention at all.
Amazing. And I can just hear there, and obviously Kay, you've mentioned as well that you'd like to write books in the future, so it's inspiring, your story as well, Matt, that you've said you were working full time, that you'd been a teacher, and then you've gone into hospital porter, and so it's almost like you're saying you didn't really imagine you'd be an author, but you have always been a writer, and suddenly, well, not suddenly, but put that hard work in, and and out came being an author.
Yeah,
so
and any one of us can be a writer, and it makes no difference really if you're published or not. Any one of us can be a writer, and that can be a fantastic thing just for ourselves as writers. It doesn't have to be for anybody else at all.
Amazing. We have got another question coming in, so I'll just come to this one, and then I've got another one I'd love to ask Kay as well. But maybe to both of you, can you tell us a favourite part of the story without giving too much away?
Oh,
no. That's a hard one.
Oh gosh, if I could start, Kay. Gosh, there is definitely a favourite part of the story, but it would give too much away to say what it is. I'm guessing, Kay, that you know what it is. There's a scene near the end where shall I say, someone who should know a lot better but doesn't, gets a very public comeuppance.
Is it Mr. Lustig Preen?
It's not Mr. Lustig Preen. It's actually one of the footballers. One of the footballers who ends up doing something really not very good at all to Billy, and learns the error of his ways, and then shows a much better side. And although I wrote it myself and I've seen it 1,000 times, even when I think about the particular scene I'm thinking of, it actually brings tears to my eyes, because it's really moving and it's really funny as well. But I can't go into any more detail because it will spoil it.
Well, I feel moved even by chapter 1, so I can imagine every chapter will be in tears. It's amazing. So is that your favourite part too, Kay?
Yes. So what is my second favourite? How can I phrase this without giving too much away? Oh my gosh, because I really want people to read it, but it gave me a real sense of positivity in myself when I read it, and a sense of like everybody matters and everybody deserves to be listened to, and also deserves to be seen, not to be treated, oh, you're in a wheelchair, so I'm going to treat you like an object. And let's just say it involves a lot of people from a lot of different places via social media. They're not the same as Billy and Mia, but they identify with them, and a football pitch. And I'm not going to say any more because I know nothing. I'm going to be open and say I know nothing about football, so that will give people the idea that it's not, you don't have to directly be knowledgeable about football to understand this part of the book. But that was another part of the book where I felt a little tear, and I'm a grown-up woman. I identify as a grown-up woman in my 30s, but that really touched me. That I could almost see that as a movie scene. It was so good.
Oh, let's hope it's
Thank you.
So yeah, that is it. Because if I keep talking, I'm gonna let it slip.
Oh, it's such a movie, I can tell already. Well, just to stay on you, Kay, before we are coming to the end of our time, which has gone so quickly, so I'll be asking you our kind of final questions in a second. But I'm just curious, Kay, do you know what your books, when hopefully they come out, do you know what they're going to be about? Or the first one, maybe? Any ideas?
No, I really don't. I'm kind of always grappling with the idea of having, very much like Matt's done, but a totally different storyline, of having a disabled character that doesn't become something or someone that everybody feels sorry for too long, and blah blah blah. And so I'm coming up with these various ideas, and I'm like, that's too extreme, that's a bit cringy. And when I say cringy, is I don't want people to go too early on in the book or too late on in the book, oh, this book is really inspirational. And I feel like Matt's book is really well balanced. Like, you don't have that kind of patronizing kind of, oh, this person is disabled, they had nothing, and now all of a sudden they have everything because of this one person and this one singular event. And I think that's what I struggle with. Whereas with Matt's book, there are micro events as well as a main event that's happening. And the main event, if you like, is Billy and Mia. But there's all these micro events around it, which doesn't make it feel like that, like newspaper article kind of base, like, oh, rags to riches, so poor to everything. That kind of, I don't want that kind of transition in my book. So all I've succeeded in doing so far is publishing poetry for adults. And I really want to move into stories, but I think I get stuck around the middle because I just keep thinking about any cringy things I see on adverts or on news reports that don't quite sit right with me, and I don't want my book to read like that. So I've never finished anything yet and felt like it's balanced right. And so, but I think I will in time. I just think I haven't had the time to. I think I need to grow more in myself. And then I'll know what sounds right, if that makes sense.
Sounds brilliant. Well, let us know, because definitely that's you're gonna get there, hopefully.
I really hope so. Thank you for the support, vote of confidence.
We will just round it off now with my kind of final question. We have had someone ask which one of your books is your favorite, Matt, but I also wanted to ask you, just because of time, the last question is, if there's anyone feeling that they haven't got the confidence to go for their dream or to go for something that really matters to them, what would you say to that, Matt?
Wow. Firstly, the favorite one, it's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. It's not going to happen. So the two books I've had published are very, very different, and I hope work in different ways, and I'm very, very pleased about both of them, very proud of both of them. Advice about, I would say, always ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And normally the worst thing that can happen is actually doing nothing whatsoever, because perhaps you're a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, and then you don't do anything, and then the moment passes, and then perhaps you actually feel worse about yourself, just a little bit worse about yourself, because you think, I could have tried to do this, I could have done that, but I didn't because I was too nervous. What's the worst thing that can happen if you actually stand up and say what you think and say what you really believe? You will always, always feel better about yourself. So always have the courage to do that, because that's how we grow as people. And that's whether you're a child or an adult.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for you, Kay, if you've still got any time left, what would you say to anyone who feels they can't have the confidence to do what matters to them?
A bit similar to Matt, really, but slightly different, is a famous poet called T.S. Eliot once said, and it's one of my favourite quotes, "All we have is the trying, the rest is not our business." And what he means by that is, when he says the rest is not our business, he's saying not that he doesn't care about the rest after the trying. He's saying you can't know unless you try. All we have is the trying, is exactly what it says. All you have is, whether it's writing, whether it's a sport, whether it's learning to paint, whatever it may be, all you have is that journey of trying. That's all you can know, and the rest is not our business. So as in, we'll never know, but we all we have is the trying, as in that's what we have, that's where everything grows from. So that is something, is I have a lot of self-doubt still, that whenever I'm getting stuck in that, I always say to myself, but all you have is the trying. So you won't know until you do that part, and that is the most important part, because even if you don't get the result that you want, you will learn something through the trying, because all we have is the trying. And he's one of my favorite poets, although I know he's more geared to adults, I believe, apart from his book about cats, which some of the children may have read. I can't remember the full title, but it's a poetry book all about cats that was then turned into Cats the Musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. So yeah, that's my little bit of advice, kind of stolen, but
perfect. You've been the most amazing guest. It's gone so quickly, but I've enjoyed every second, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. So I just want to leave it to say thank you to those who've joined us or watched the recording. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much to Matt and to Kay, and all the best to
Absolute
everyone.
pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone.